Welcome everyone, you're listening to and perhaps watching Hot Sauce Sports. I'm your host, Peace Delariz. Joining me this week is not Terry Tam. Terry's unable to make it tonight. John Eamon, he's joining us. Hey John, how's it going?
Not bad. Happy to be here. Terry's a slacker, so I'm here to pick up the pace.
Last time I checked, he's somewhere outside the Bell Center in Montreal trying to scalp his tickets for $2,000 a piece. So if you want tickets, you know who to contact.
You know who to contact. That's the disembodied voice you heard, of course, is the Eagle Eye Master Control. For those who don't know, John, you do a lot of work for Hot Sauce Sports, more than just being an on-camera personality. You do the thing that Terry and I are largely incapable of doing, and that's be incredibly organized and hold people accountable for their deadlines. You're the closest thing we have to a suit, and it's funny because if you know your personality, you're the furthest thing any human has ever been to a suit.
I feel like my hair shows that right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But John, irony that you are the one wearing the dress shirt.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it's all just a gimmick. It's all just a gimmick. John, honestly, we're always happy to have you on the show because, again, on top of everything you add to our content, you're also by far the most researched among us, and you know our content better than even we know it ourselves because of your involvement. So really happy to have you on board today. Eagle, I don't know the ads. Can you read them?
I don't have the reads. I give them to you.
Okay,
but
so
this episode is brought to you by Hot Streak, the world's quickest daily fantasy sports game. If you want to lose a lot of money like Terry Tam does and then have to try and scalp your tickets to earn it back, Hot Streak is the way to go. You can earn a bunch of money every 3 minutes just by using the app, placing bets on your common sports. Right now, the NBA playoffs are a really big one. I would tell you what bet I placed, but I didn't do it because I don't have an iPhone and I didn't get the link. Thanks, guys. But you can absolutely do it. I think it's use Hot Sauce as the
it's
referral.
Hot Sauce.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they'll match your input essentially for your initial start-off money and everything. So definitely check that out. We're also brought to you by Mark's BBQRubMTL.com. You can get 10% off any of the individual bottles available on their site. My personal favorite is the what's it called? The habanero and is it Cajun? Is it bourbon? Bourbon. There we go.
Bourbon, yeah.
Mixed together. That one's quite fantastic. Although I hear the truffle mustard is very good, and the buffalo truffle, called the Truffalo sauce, is to die for. So definitely check that out. Mike's BBQ Rub MTL. Use the code HOTSAUCE10 for 10% off all bottles. How's that?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
I think you called him Mark, but it's Mike.
Mark's hot.
Sometimes.
Mark's barbecue.
It's part of my gig, right? I got to get the names wrong.
Exactly.
It's true, though. Like, Eagle generally pronounces words really well and speaks well, but for some reason he can't do names. And the simpler the name, the more unlikely it is that he'll get it right. We won't be able to place any hot sauce bets on the show today because we're recording at a time that'll be too early to get any of the Bucks and Hawks game. But Terry and I often post what we're doing on social media, specifically on Twitter. So hopefully you can follow along with us there. Guys, tomorrow is Quebec's national holiday. And for those who are listening outside of the province of Quebec, it might sound weird that a province has a national holiday, but my answer to you is yes. Boys, do you have any
drink?
Yeah, exactly. It's the national drinking holiday for those who are the uninitiated. John, do you have any plans? Although you're out west right now, do you have any plans for tomorrow?
Not particularly. I'm probably going to enjoy the Habs game. Mm-hmm. I feel like it'll poetically be Philip Deneau scoring the game winner on Saint Jean, and I'm going to celebrate that like no other.
If they advance to the finals on Saint Jean, that would be
incredible.
Poetry in motion, right? Like,
yeah,
that's just beautiful. Eagle, do you celebrate the national holiday?
By celebrate, do you mean not take work meetings and try and sit by a pool and get drunk? Then yes.
Yes. Awesome. So your plans are identical to mine. I'll be getting drunk in a pool. And we're going to be making, I did this a few years ago with my friends. I made poutine with a blueberry gravy because blue is the Quebec national color. So it kind of looks weird, but my friends like it. I find blue to be an off-putting color to have in food. But I did it once kind of on a bet that I can do it, and now my friends like it, so I need to make it now and again. So That's my plan. For those,
these are the same friends that also exchange garbage for Christmas, right?
yeah, we have an inconvenient dirty Santa where it is that all year long, whenever you find stuff in your house that you don't want to keep, and you don't want to dispose of yourself, you put it aside, wrap it up, and then we have a gift exchange where we exchange all of these terrible and ideally inconvenient gifts. One year I gave someone a box of used batteries. Another year, someone got a Ziploc of week-old meat, and she was a vegetarian. So it's a good time, good traditions. We have a lot of traditions all centered around alcohol, though. So yeah, same group of
Including a
friends.
blueberry puts in. Yeah.
Including a blueberry puts in. That's one of them, indeed. We have a lot to get to, but before we do, I just want to remind everyone: if you like the kind of work we do, please do subscribe, do rate, do review, and give us a download, give us a shot. We have a lot of properties on Hot Sauce Sports. So whether it's Not Sauce for Work, our show, or any of our other properties, we thank you for your support and look forward to your support if you have not yet graced us with your subscription.
I love how you refer to them as properties. I feel like we're playing Monopoly now.
Yeah, I never know how to refer to them. It's a word I used once, and I was like, that sounds super professional. It sounds like
the minions and the grunts that operate under our leash.
Yeah. It is that definitely, because man, no one told us how much work this would be when we started. But yeah, here we are. And I didn't have John by my side to figure out what's the most professional word to refer to these properties by. So I went with properties. But we have a ton of stuff coming up, so let's just jump into it. It's time for the news. Terry, it's the news.
Terry Amon has a nice ring.
This is one of the most interesting shows I've ever had a privilege to work on for a specific reason, and we'll only touch on that reason at the end. But I'll introduce sort of what that reason is conceptually, and then Eagle, if you can remind me by the end of the show, to sort of call back to this moment. And I'll tell you what those three things are. But there are three specific items in my lifetime that as a child I said, well, these things just make a lot of sense. And those three things seem to really bother a lot of people. And it's cool that on this show I get to talk about all three things in one episode. So I'm really excited about the prospect of this. So yeah, we'll touch on exactly what that is. And I'll sort of, I guess the first one sort of tips my cap a little bit, since obviously that's how I introduced the topic. But we'll, you'll get one. You'll have to guess the other two, John. Karl Nassib. He is a defensive lineman for the Las Vegas Raiders. He basically went out to Instagram, recorded this story, and posted it online. And let's take a look at it before we have our reactions.
Hold on, it's coming.
Okay. And now.
It's a little slow today.
Are you already drinking, Eagle?
No.
What's up, people? I'm Karl Nassib. I'm at my house here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Just want to take a quick moment to say that I'm gay. I've been meaning to do this for a while now, but I finally feel comfortable enough to get it off my chest. I really have the best life. I got the best family, friends, and job a guy could ask for. I'm a pretty private person, so I hope you guys know that I'm really not doing this for attention. I just think that representation and visibility are so important. I actually hope that one day videos like this and the whole coming out process are just not necessary. But until then, I'm going to do my best and do my part to cultivate a culture that's accepting, that's compassionate, and I'm going to start by donating $100,000 to the Trevor Project. They're an incredible organization. They're the #1 suicide prevention service for LGBTQ youth in America, and they're truly doing incredible things. And I'm very excited to be a part of it, to help in any way that I can. And I'm really pumped to see what the future holds. That's all I have for you guys. I hope you have a great day. Work hard. What's up, people? I'm Karl Nassib.
Yeah, so Karl Nassib, the first active NFL player to come out as gay. Pretty
Chances of
historic
him getting
moment.
cut?
I don't think I think I would like to hope that the league has become more accepting. I know, or what I've heard rather, is the fear of this very rarely was in the locker room. The fear of this was, um, and especially as time has gone on, an irrational fear that ownership had that this would affect the bottom line, that they would lose business because some of their employees were gay, even though statistically across all businesses throughout the world that hasn't been the case. Um, and players often felt, especially players who were not necessarily superstars, and I'll tell one of those stories in a second after we get John's thoughts. Um, some of those players felt as though in the past that being who they were in reality could cost them earning, and that's something that no one on this Skype call, myself, John, or Eagle, none of us really can even understand because we've never had that risk. John, what are your first thoughts after seeing that video? I know you've seen it before, obviously, but what were your first thoughts? And now, upon reflection, what are your thoughts on Karl Nassib and his coming out?
I really got to say that it was cool to see like just how genuine and authentic he was throughout that. Obviously, this is a big deal for him. You saw like small things like the nervous swaying back and forth because you can really feel like it was a lot for him to come out and say that. So I love it. And I really liked the fact that a lot of people, not just Karl, were continuing this narrative of that we're looking forward to the day where this is no longer newsworthy.
Yeah.
It was reiterated by Goodell. I saw JJ Watt post it as well. And that's what you hope for. And who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens. But kudos to him. And I will say, I think it was Mark Cuban, this is going back a few years now, who said the first active athlete to come out as gay will see his own sponsorship endorsement opportunities as well. And it would be cool to see where that builds into and where that leads to with Karl.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I feel most people in professional arenas reacted in a positive light. I thought that was cool to see in a way that I don't know if it would have been that way in the 80s or 90s or even the early zeros. But a lot of what, of course, perturbed me was the commenters. And I've learned that the commenters actually represent somewhere between 7 to 10% of people. And of the ones who will comment on sort of like a story like this, they tend to be even a smaller minority, somewhere between 4 to 5% of all even active accounts. And that's not like 4 to 5% of America or of North America, whatever. It's 4 to 5% of active accounts on that site, which don't even represent a large enough sample size, let's say, of a country or of a city, or it's quite a small number. But those comments often miss the point. One of the things I kept seeing was, well, what, should I come out to my employees as straight? And I was like, well, that's not the same thing. You're assumed straight. You don't have to come out as straight. Coming out is a big deal. And to me, if you want to talk about why this is a big deal, then perhaps you don't have anyone in your life who's gay. And to your point, John, a lot of these people were saying, like, why is this news? Well, the problem is that it's news, and that hopefully it won't be news. I know it's not why they were saying it at all. They went the opposite way. But when I saw that, I said, you know what? These people largely are missing the point and don't realize, A, how much strength it takes, and B, the Trevor Foundation that he talks about, or Trevor Project, my mistake. I've been calling it the Trevor Foundation nonstop for 2 days. The Trevor Project, they work with people, a counseling service for the LGBT community, because I don't know if you know this, John, but someone who is in the LGBT community, that community has a much higher rate of suicide and self-harm than straight people do. It's completely disproportionate. They work to counsel people in that area, because the statistic that absolutely shocked me was that a person coming out in the LGBT community, or just a person in that community who has one supportive person in their life, has a 40% less chance of committing suicide. So it's literally saving lives for him to come out. It's very impressive. So yeah, that was the part of it that the commenters, of course, grated on my nerves a little bit. And then I was like, what am I doing reading comments? I never read them. Why am I doing it today?
I had two thoughts when this came up. The first one was, so this is what Michael Sam would have happened to him if he didn't make it into a gigantic media publicity deal to try and save his job because he wasn't good enough to play in the NFL. And my second thought was, who in the mainstream media is going to have the balls to call him a distraction, and how long is it going to take?
So I'm glad you brought that word up, Eagle. So there's two basketball players I want to draw attention to. The first one, or former basketball players. One is the father of a current player, Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway, famously on the Dan Le Batard show some 15 years ago, or whenever that show wasn't even on ESPN at the time. They were just a Florida show, let alone their giant deal with DraftKings that we talked about on this show. Tim Hardaway on live radio said that he didn't like gay people. And of course, he was largely hammered by it, as you would expect. And then years later, not only had he realized how wrong he was, but he actively works in the community to work with gay youth, work with gay young athletes to either find the strength to come out or to feel support in a time where they may not be supported. And so this brought me to another basketball player. He's a guy from England who got away sort of being a gay guy in the locker room for a long time because they just thought, oh, well, he's English. And John Amici, who's basically one of the smartest people I've had the pleasure of following on Twitter and so on, he talks about often that it's not enough to be an ally to the disenfranchised, to whether it's someone who's gay or people who are minorities and so on and so forth. But in fact, in order to make proper use of the cause, you need to emphatically be anti-racist and anti-misogynist and so on and so forth. And Tim Hardaway is a case that he draws to a lot because it says, listen, you don't have to be perfect. You can make mistakes. You can have prejudices in your life, but the goal is that you eventually need to learn from them. And I thought of that because John Amici talked about at one point being a member of the Utah Jazz and how he felt literally that, hey, I'm not good enough to be myself in public. And he knew the team would cut him because he would be so-called a distraction. Imagine, Eagle, because you brought this up, that, something about your life that is core and critical to who you are would be considered to be a distraction, while at the same time, who was the NFL player? Was it Clark from the Chiefs? He had an Uzi in his car and was arrested. That guy is going to have a job in the NFL. We've seen convicted criminals,
domestic violence abuse left, right, and center.
Yeah, and those guys get to keep their jobs and are not a distraction, but someone who needs to hide something core to their identity because that's a distraction. He guffawed at that on Twitter a couple days ago, and I thought that was well put. I never actually put it in those terms, although it's something I've believed. I never actually had someone explain it to me and break it down in a way that you can't even argue that. That's just stupid, right? Like, why would it matter to his work, John, that he's gay?
Oh, that's the perfect way to put it. And
does it matter that your banker is gay, for example, or that your mechanic is gay? Like, that doesn't matter.
No, not at all.
I mean, maybe your plumber because he's going to check your pipes, but...
I mean, as long as checking the pipes is consensual, legal.
Although I was pleased to see his jersey was, I think, the highest selling product on the NBA shop after that announcement came out. So there is still good left in the world? ?
I think that's interesting, and I think that all the thing people say about this being a quote unquote distraction, right? And we've seen things like race be politicized, we've seen things like gender be politicized. To see people react that way is interesting because it shows me, no, this isn't bad for your bottom line. Diversity only helps your bottom line because people see themselves in Karl Nassib. And people see themselves in players of, for whatever reason, whether it's for matters of protest or whether it's to be true to themselves and to be part of a community. A gay football player can't stay at home and say, you know what, I'm never going to make the NFL because I'm gay. So that's cool to see.
Yep.
That's cool to see. The NCAA, that's Karl Nassib's background, right? He used to play in the NCAA. He played in a time where players could not receive compensation. John, the thing we've talked about, I think as long as we've been on the show, and we've talked about this before any of us were on the network, how the NCAA players were not fairly compensated for what they generated for the university, specifically in the realms of basketball and football. The Supreme Court ruled decisively, 9-0, that that was completely in violation of antitrust. And it appears as though we're heading towards not only likeness, but also having players who have the right to earn contract from the university.
Oh, I don't understand what took so long. Like, did they wake up one day and like, oh man, this is bad? What do we? But I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm still hesitant on the NCAA operating in good faith, but at least they're having the conversation now. And I know that people want to concentrate the conversation on basketball and football because those are the two cash cows for the NCAA. But even just for individual athletes, like this is going to be huge, and like there's a long list of them that you can go down and just they'll finally be able to recoup money that they would not have otherwise got because they probably won't go pro statistically speaking.
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention the fact that someone can have a scholarship, earn money, and then once they get hurt, they get cut, they get nothing back, and also they lose their scholarship, despite the fact that they got hurt playing for the school, which is I know someone who that happened for, by the way, so that's why I can say that with some authority. Eagle, you were saying?
Yeah, so one of the biggest conversations people were having about student athletes was you kind of had to make a choice, right? It's do you want to go get an education or do you want to give that up and go pro? And once you went pro, there was no going back. Do you think this is going to change the career path of some of these athletes where they're going to attempt to go pro much earlier on in their careers? And if it doesn't work, they go back to their basically alumni, their campuses, and continue on at that point? Like, do you think that's going to be a common trend now in terms of people trying to rush through the whole school process?
I mean, probably. People are always going to do that. It's hard for someone at that age to walk away from a contract or to walk away from money in general.
I'm sorry, I must have been frozen. I disagree. I think, if anything, there's an incentive to stay in school now. Like, especially if you're an athlete who needs the money, right? Like that's the case for some student athletes. In the end, if you can leave early and make millions of dollars in any realm, whether it's school, whether it's athletics, famously, the dude who invented Facebook, right? Like he didn't finish school. He went off to start his company. And then
dude who invented Facebook?
I literally forgot his name, my dude. I forgot it. Mark Zuckerberg, thank you.
The robot
I didn't want to say like Mike Zuckerberg into the Eagle. It's Mark Zuckerberg and Mike's barbecue sauce. But so what I found most fascinating, first of all, is one of the first shows that we did, Eagle, you and I lamented Kavanaugh being appointed to the Supreme Court. And he was the one, surprisingly, was the harshest on the NCAA, saying that it was patently absurd that to say that the core aspect of their business was that their workforce was unpaid. That's like saying the only reason people consume my product is that I don't pay my employees. That is crazy. That was their actual defense. And a guy who you and I, Eagle, criticized very heavily actually showed some sense and sided against the NCAA.
I'm actually not as surprised at that ruling, considering word on the street is he had a great time in college.
Oof. But, to be fair, unlike I forgot the joke I was gonna make. Never mind. Never mind. It probably wouldn't have been appropriate anyway.
Oh, definitely.
But
Yeah,
John,
I set you up bad for that one.
I know, I know. It had to do because we mentioned consent in the previous segment, and I was gonna say, unlike that, um, John, with regards to what you were saying about the NCAA is going to drag their feet and whatnot. What's interesting is two things. You asked what took so long, and the other thing you asked is why it was that sorry, what was the other point you made?
They kind of now it was unanimous, but it's been years that this conversation's been happening.
Well, so firstly, the first time the NCAA had to start to think about this was in 1986. They were sued by the states of Oklahoma and Georgia, and the state said that they wanted to decide when their games would be on television, and they would start up their own networks. And at that point, that decision to allow that meant that they would eventually become these giant conferences and sign these giant TV deals. That, of course, was unprecedented at the time in 1986. In 1986, and there's actually a good piece on this on ESPN, The Daily, which is where I'm going to be quoting at this point for those who haven't listened. There was something in that document that said that college athletes were amateurs. The NCAA has also defined and redefined what amateurism has been since 1986, since that point. But what the court decided this time around is that is what's called, in legal terms, to be dicta, which is sometimes you write things in a document that just are supporting the greater point, but in itself don't have inherent value. The NCAA was holding it up as if that was the court's decision, but in reality was just a throwaway line in the court documents. So that's why it took so long, is they were holding up something completely in bad faith. Now, the court actually said that any time that they were going to violate antitrust, the Supreme Court was going to jump in ahead of time and say, listen, no, you can't fight like this. You can't not pay players and so on. I'm curious, though, to see, to me, the thing that makes sense for both sides in the way that they can figure out how this can work best across the board for all the different conferences, for all the different schools, and for the players. I think we're headed towards having a student athletes union. John, do you think I'm absolutely wild? Do you think I'm absolutely crazy? Or do you think that that's the way it's going to go?
I think that's what's missing, especially for the athletes. Like, they have no ground. They don't have any way to fight against this giant corporation that is the NCAA. I think it's going to be incredibly hard to keep organized because there's a lot of 1,100 schools that are part of the NCAA, but I think that's the next logical step, especially if they wanted to do this properly, and they wanted to have a sustained business model where it makes sense for athletes to be compensated and it doesn't constantly get reconfirmed or reconfigured every couple of years. But I was thinking the same thing when I was doing my research today. Like, there's going to be a union, I would say, at least within the next decade.
And what's interesting is, like, in pro sports or even in businesses in general, the corporation, or in this case, the NCAA is actually a cartel of many corporations, which makes this even more interesting. Yeah. But I think that unlike a lot of formations of unions, I think a lot of the schools are actually going to be on the side of starting a student union because it'll allow for an even playing field for some of the smaller schools. Like, this way, Minnesota can still compete with Ohio State in a way that they may not be able to if Ohio State can just open their coffers and start paying players whatever they want. So I think we'll actually see cooperation. It won't be all the schools. It will definitely not be the Alabamas. It will not be the Clemsons. No. But you're going to see a lot of cooperation from sort of those mid-tier schools. John, I've been following the NHL playoffs. I've been on some of our live streams, as you know. I generally like the NHL playoffs because some crazy stuff happens. And I specifically like that it happens at the same time as the NBA playoffs because I get to just absorb all of the sports.
Yeah.
But can you tell me what the fuck is happening with the Montreal Canadiens? I'm a casual hockey fan. I don't understand it the way I understand hockey, the way I understand football and basketball. Please tell me, why is this team that I don't think is any good, despite being my favorite team, why are they ahead in this series? Why does it look like they're heading to the Stanley Cup Finals on Saint-Jean?
It might be cliche to say, but they're playing the best hockey of their season now, and that's really all you can ask for. That's the step number one for this perfect recipe of success. I will say that I've been incredibly impressed. I think that the Habs have built their team in a way that is non-conventional. People don't like it because it's boring. It's not fun to watch. But at the same time, when you have the best goalie in the league, you have to build around that. He's been average during the regular season for a while, for I would say probably the last 2 seasons. I'm not sure how much you want to contribute injuries to that, but that's another conversation. But they're doing everything that you need to do to win in the playoffs. Carey Price has been the best player in the series, every single series they've played so far. Their best players are their best players. Like if you look at the Habs' top scorers, it's their first line. That's how you win playoff hockey. They have incredible secondary scoring coming from their forwards. The first through fourth line, has been awesome. I don't think Philip Deneau gets enough credit. I know that he's getting it now, and that Philip Deneau hype train is building. I would love to see him be the first player to win a Conn Smythe with 0 goals scored, but if the Habs get to that point, it's going to be Price.
Conn Smythe? I never remember which.
So the Conn Smythe is MVP of the playoffs.
Oh, that's going to be Carey Price if they win, though.
Yeah, if the Habs win, it's 100% Carey Price. But the one thing that I feel people like to discredit Bergevin for the most is the way that he built his D-core. And sure, that's fine. I get it. They don't have a puck-moving defenseman outside of Jeff Petrie, who's injured right now. That's a very, very big loss for the Habs in terms of creating offense, especially when you look at the Vegas team. Like all of their scoring is coming from defense, and the Habs have no production coming from the D. But that doesn't matter because it's a D-core that's built around maximizing what you're going to get for Carey Price. If you realistically think about it, he is their best puck-moving defenseman. And you can say that is a recipe for failure. But when he's as good as he is, why not create space for him to play the puck to allow the transition to the forwards? And then you just have defense that stand the blue line, force the other team to dump the puck in, which is just going to put it to Carey Price's stick. And you have a D-core that doesn't let anybody near him. Since Chris Kreider, 0 people have gotten near Carey Price. And that's how you need to keep him. You need to keep him healthy. You need to keep his vision free of anybody in front of him. And that's all they're doing. And it's the most simple hockey in the world, but it's working. And they've bought in, it's incredible to see because I won't lie, I was critical of Ducharme to start because I felt like he was playing to not lose. But ever since they brought Cole Caulfield in, they haven't played afraid. They're playing hockey to win. They're playing hockey because they believe that they're the better team every single night. And man, this playoff run has been one of the greatest things, and the timing couldn't be better because everyone has been stuck inside their house for so long that maybe this is why I'm not on Twitter a lot, but like I felt like things were just hypercritical on Twitter this year for every fan base, not just the Habs. But this has just been something that's given people something to enjoy.
Well, so like if you follow along with Habs Twitter the way I do, the heat Carey Price gets on a daily basis is absolutely insane. I had this thought today, and I want to know your thoughts. If the Canadians don't win the Stanley Cup, just on this playoff run alone, if there was any doubt at all, which I thought there was none before all this, if there was any doubt that Carey Price was a Hall of Famer, these are the moments you look back to and it's like, oh no, it's 100%, it's very clear, he's a Hall of Famer, right? Like I'm not crazy to think that.
Oh no, and if we're being honest, this is the only thing that's missing from Price's resume to be a Hall of Famer is that Stanley Cup. Not only would he win a Stanley Cup if they get that far this year, like he's locked in for the Conn Smythe for the Habs if the Habs win. I would make the argument that there's no better player in the playoffs right now than Carey Price. And I would include Kucherov in that argument.
I was going to say Kucherov might have something to say about that.
John, he'll definitely have something to say about that.
Let's say the Canadians win either Game 6 or Game 7, and then they go on to play Tampa. I thought the Habs would have no chance against Vegas. I said it on our live stream. And in the first game, it looked exactly like what I thought, that the Canadians punched them in the mouth for 10 minutes, didn't convert, and then Vegas just bled them to death. And then we haven't seen that since.
No.
Is there any chance that Montreal can get by Tampa.
We're saying Tampa.
Like,
it could
realistic.
theoretically still be Islanders, but it's most likely going to be Tampa.
It's not going to be the Islanders. You don't come back from that. That's a Panson.
I will say that for Montreal to win the fourth game, it's gonna be a bloodbath because Vegas will not go down easy. A guy like Mark Stone has been virtually invisible, but we'll play hypothetical, and if they make it
All
to Tampa,
their forwards have been invisible.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, Mark Stone is the head of the snake, and Philip Deneau has literally taken the head off the snake to this point. Mark Stone is good enough to change it on a dime, but for when you talk about Tampa, I say yes, and it's not great odds, but I will say Carey Price gives you a 50-50 chance to win every single night, in my opinion, and that's what a goalie does. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what they get paid to do. And the reason why I think Montreal has a chance, realistically, is because they've had the best penalty kill in the playoffs, and it's not even close. Their penalty kill is actually operating they have 4 shorthanded goals and only 3 power play goals scored against. That's unheard of. That doesn't make sense. But when you look at Tampa, they have the best power play in the playoffs, and it's not even close. If you look at their top 5 scorers, Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, Killorn, and Hedman, everyone but Killorn has double-digit playoff points. Power play points, in the playoffs. All of them have double-digit points.
Jesus.
Yeah. And if you look at it, Kucherov, 63%, Point 61, Stamkos 65, Killorn 75. That's the percentage of points that come from the power play in these playoffs. If Montreal can neutralize that factor, that's going to be massive. Tampa is still good enough to score 5-on-5. That's undoubtable. But if you can take away the power play from them and neutralize that aspect of the game, you're taking the biggest advantage they have over teams, because that power play that they have operates at an efficiency level that is unconscionable. Like it's insane the amount of skill they have on that top 5, and they make it look easy.
I believe that I put the wrong picture in the script, so don't bother opening it up unless it's the right thing, Eagle. But I will say this about Tampa: I doubt they'll be as doubt they'll be as petty as Vegas. Vegas putting up Celine Dion's. Oh no, wait, that's why. Never mind. It's later in the show. Never mind.
We'll come back to that.
Let's move on. I'm sorry. I had to make some changes because there's actually a ton of stories this week. But before we get into rapid fire, I actually didn't catch much of the Canadiens game yesterday. I only caught the tail end, and then I switched over to the NBA game and caught the last couple of minutes, which took, I think, 38 minutes to complete because of all.
That sounds about right.
Oh, the NBA's got to do something about the instant replay. It takes too damn long. But anyway, the game ended this way. Eagle, hit the clip.
It's coming.
This is coming courtesy of Bleacher Report.
What a perfectly executed play. Ayton guides it in beautifully. What an incredible job by Monty Williams designing that play to perfection.
But there's time on the clock. And again, another great screen by Booker.
DeAndre Ayton, who was terrific tonight, 24 points, 14 rebounds.
There we go.
Yeah, so DeAndre Ayton catching the alley-oop from Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder, like, I know this happens, and you see this mostly, I think, in basketball and hockey, where there are guys who are just quote-unquote playoff performers. Jay Crowder must have more playoff games played than regular season games played at this point. Like, the guy's always in the playoffs, and he always seems to be making a deep run. Miami got rid of him last year. Now he's with the Suns, and he's making that game-winning pass. Just well-designed. You know, I don't even understand why he got no help. Boogie Cousins basically just shoved Booker instead of playing, and then he had a 1-on-1 with DeAndre Ayton against Zubac. I like Zubac. He's a nice player, but, you know, he's not the same athlete that Ayton is, and that's what we saw in that play.
He's so you know that I concede to you when it comes to basketball as much as you concede to me when it comes to hockey.
Absolutely.
But I've genuinely never known. Like, I know that there's no goaltending on an inbound,
Yes.
How is this not something you see more often? Because that play was awesome.
So the thing, okay, I can do an actual breakdown. Eagle, how are we doing on time?
Yeah.
Okay, so basketball defense is quite interesting, and it's more than it appears on the surface. And so teams typically do one of two things, where they're either switching teams or non-switching teams. And switching teams basically means that when you get picked, then the person who's guarding the picking player switches to the free man, and the person who's guarding the free man who was picked switches to the person being picked, right? Then the other thing that can happen is you're a non-switching team, and then there's a million options. You can flash and show, you can bump and release, and like there's a whole slew of things you can do on defense. From what I saw throughout the game and what I've seen watching the Clippers, although this might change with Kawhi out, is they're a switching team. So instead what would happen is you see Ayton actually pull Zubac into Booker. He literally grabs him by the jersey, pulls him into Booker. That kind of thing's not called late in the games of playoffs anyways, so he knew what he can get away with. Typically, you would get a switch. So either Boogie or I think Terrence Mann was on Booker initially. One of those two guys needed to come off him, but the thought process was that if we're not going to let Devin Booker beat us, right? Like if he flares out, then Booker's got an open jumper. So it's just to answer your question, normally what would happen is if you're a switching team, you switch and therefore the alley-oop is not open, or you do one of these other techniques where you're bumping DeAndre Ayton offline, and so once again it's not there. So it was a defensive mistake essentially that allowed for this to happen. And it's an easy alley-oop for an NBA player because he's not dribbling up the court. He's just standing there, and it's basically he just has to shoot it at the basket. And sorry, it wasn't Boogie. It was actually Terrence Mann because Boogie was actually on the inbound, which again he's trying to refuse the pass to Devin Booker. I don't know. It's a weird decision. They also don't have their best defensive player on the court. So, I mean, I guess that's why that happened in a sense. That's a very long answer to your very simple question as to why teams don't do it often. You don't do it often because if defended properly, it's very difficult to block.
There.
It's just not there. And I actually believe what's being missed is that Jay Crowder's read was excellent. Jay Crowder, if he was going to be like, okay, well, once Booker flares out, I'll hit him with a pass, he wouldn't have been able to do it because he would have been double teamed. Instead, he stayed flexible enough to see, oh, no, wait, they're letting Ayton go to the basket, and Zubac took the worst line ever and could never catch up, and so therefore the play happens. And, great ending to an otherwise kind of okay game without Chris Paul and Kawhi Leonard in the lineup.
I love it.
Chris Paul's a guy who's got a lot of heat throughout his career, but Ben Simmons is a guy who's cashing it all now. The process, the blueprint, Ben Simmons' future in Philadelphia all seem to be on the line. What are your thoughts there?
I feel like you might have to correct me on this, but I feel like the 76ers are the Toronto Maple Leafs of basketball. Logically, they have all the pieces that you would want for a team to be successful, but the sum of its parts aren't always there. They're not always greater than the sum of their parts. But I don't understand. Does Ben Simmons does he just not dunk?
So what's interesting is he only dunks and hits layups.
Oh.
He seems absolutely terrified to shoot the ball, and he's actually the thing he does best is collapse the defense and allow for open 3-pointers. Like he's the single best creator of open threes in the league. But in the playoffs in the fourth quarter, typically you want the ball to go into the hands of your superstar player. This team has Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, who are considered to be the superstars. But Ben Simmons, in the fourth quarter, do you know what his stat line in terms of attempts or
shooting?
Yeah, you know what it was for the fourth quarter in series?
3 shots attempted, I think.
Yeah, he was 3 for 3 in the fourth quarter of all the games combined. I've never seen that. I've never and he fell apart. Do you know what his free throw percentage was going into this game at the free throw line?
No.
30%.
Sweet.
That's lower than Shaq. It's historically low. It's rough. I actually don't think Philadelphia is a particularly well-built team. I think Embiid and Simmons kind of duplicate each other's skill sets, but Embiid's a better version of what Simmons is.
Okay.
I'd like to see Simmons on a team like the Golden State where he's basically creating shots, and we can actually just see Steph become this spot-up shooter who could then put up 60 points a night, I guess, if you wanted to, if you're just hitting open threes all night. But here, I want to discuss two specific things. Here's Embiid's reaction, first of all, to Ben Simmons passing up a wide-open dunk under the basket right before the end of that game. You can see him being visibly frustrated and then talking to him. I can imagine the conversation was just, dude, shoot the goddamn ball. And then after the game, they ask about whether they're going to run it back. And Embiid says, well, that's a tricky question. And they ask Doc Rivers if they can win an NBA championship with Ben Simmons as a point guard. And he says, simply, I don't know. Have you ever seen something like this where someone who clearly has a ton of talent just can't perform at this level? And just sort of, and I never say players in a team sport choke because it's so much more complex than that. But I don't even, I when you literally can't bring yourself to shoot or make an open layup because you're in your own head. Do you even have a comparable for that?
Not to this level, no. There's always the argument that certain players are regular season versus playoff guys. I don't know enough.
So imagine him missing 30 shots. Just going over 30. There was the year that the Rockets were basically a single three-pointer away from making it to the finals, and James Harden was 1 for 15, and Trevor Ariza 1 for 9, and literally no one on that team can shoot after hitting threes all season long. He wasn't even taking the shots.
That's what I was saying. So that's the thing where I kind of was looking at you as does he just not like to dunk? Because you could tell, when he was driving the lane, you could tell that he was already thinking about what was going to happen if I don't make this shot instead of just going to the rim.
He said, by the way, when asked about it, he said he was worried about, on the backside, the defense of, get ready for the name I'm about to drop on you, Danilo Gallinari. Is there ever a world where a single NBA player has been afraid of not the three-point shooting prowess, not the ball movement, but the defense of Danilo Gallinari, a guy who's been known his entire career for just being a guy on the defensive side of the court?
You must have been talking some serious smack during the game, and Ben Simmons just crumbled.
My God, I can't imagine that. So we'll see. I think Simmons, much like Markelle Fultz, I think that they're going to go to place. He'll go to a place where the team will be better suited to his ability. And we look at the process. Yes, they could have had Jason Tatum instead of Ben Simmons, but this is a team that drafted Jahlil Okafor, who I don't even think is in the league anymore. They made a ton of mistakes, and even when they didn't make mistakes, I thought they drafted guys who were not complementary pieces. In the case in point in Ben Simmons and Embiid. And I thought Markelle Fultz was just a shorter version of the same kind of thing. It was
they had a template in mind.
Yeah, it was you had an A version of that, and then a B+ version of that, and then a C version of that. I don't know. It was just really strange.
They're just hedging their bets, man. You're gonna hit on one of them.
Yeah, I know, but just get. There's a reason Seth Curry, the other Curry, was the second best player in the series, because when you have guys who collapse the paint, you need shooters. It's the most obvious thing. LeBron went to LA, and what did they do? They traded Lonzo Ball almost immediately because LeBron is a much better version of the things Lonzo Ball does. He needed shooters around him, and they did, and they won a championship. So it's I don't know. To me, it should be quite simple, and I don't know why the superstar and coach would make those comments because all they've done is hurt the trade value for Ben Simmons. But I think someone's going to look at a 6'9" point guard who creates more open threes than anybody else in the league and is an elite defender, by the way, the part of basketball few people talk about. I think there'll be a market for him. Should we get to rapid fire, Eagle?
Sure, let's go ahead and do that right now. I think we got 6 or 7 of them for today, so this will be fun. Our first one is simply
six.
Whatever, I can't count. Simply Wanderful. Just a few short days after Father's Day, the Rays' Wander Franco hit his first career home run while his father was in the stands filming it. So we get to watch it.
That's so cool. My dad has never been that proud of me for anything I've ever done. I don't think when I submitted my first blog for Hot Sauce Sports, he celebrated that way. I've been hearing about Wander Franco since he was 15 years old. This guy's supposed to be the next big thing. Switch hitting shortstop who is incredible defensively and hits with power. It's awesome. Really, really happy to see him finally in the league, and happy to see his father's reaction. Like we said, just after Father's Day.
Quick shout out to Pops for not disturbing the podcast this week.
Yeah, well, maybe
still early, but
that's his way of showing love and affection for what we do on Hot Sauce Sports. The first time in months he hasn't disturbed the show.
But I will say I kind of want to see the video from the dad because it's for sure like the classic older person taking a video where it starts off great and then it's just the sky and noise. Yeah. You could see that at one point, and it's just pure emotion. And I want to see where the video trails off because it's for sure just a bunch of blurry images and then just crazy screaming.
I'd love if the entire time he had the camera flipped and it's on himself, and then it's not even on himself; it's just on the guy behind him. And then like if the guy is just like a fan of the other team, just sort of sulking behind him, like. That's just like 90 seconds of some angry dude who hates the Rays. That would be awesome. That'd be absolutely awesome.
All right, next. Dude, where's my office? Lakers' Alex Caruso was arrested in Texas for marijuana possession. He had a grinder that had marijuana residue in it, and LeBron later joked on Twitter that he would pay his bail in cash. Stephen A. Smith, I hate to bring it to him, but he has some news for him.
Also because Alex Caruso for the Los Angeles Lakers could not stay off the weed. Duh. I mean, damn. Another one. Also because Alex...
I mean, it's funny every time he does it. I don't know why.
And it's like... Stephen A. doesn't think this is a big deal. He's playing a character, absolutely. The NBA, there was jokes. I remember even a decade ago about the Trailblazers and how much they would blaze after games. And, it's always been a part of NBA culture. And, they don't even test for it anymore. It's legal in most states. It's legal in the state that Alex Caruso plays in, but not legal in Texas. It just seems so arbitrary that if you stand on one piece of earth, it's illegal, and then you stand on another piece of earth, it's not a big deal at all.
Just so you know, for the Canadians watching, it's not. You're allowed a certain amount to bring on a plane. I found that out the hard way. I had a mild panic attack when I was on a plane, and I pulled a baggie out of my pocket because I was trying to get headphones.
Okay.
And I nearly poofed myself, and then I thought about it, and I was like, well, if I'm here, it's already too late, so I'll just enjoy my plane ride.
Yeah, for sure. It's I don't ever take that chance just because I don't want to be delayed for any reason when flying. And then if my flight gets, diverted and I have to land in the States, I don't know how that's gonna play out. So yeah, I just never take a chance at that.
This was definitely not intentional. This was me being an idiot.
Yeah, I have a story about Duke having to eat a lot of. we're taking a bus to New York State, and he didn't realize he still had it in his bag, and I was like, "Yo, go to the bathroom and flush it down," and he ate it, which didn't result in him getting high so much as just having an incredibly sore stomach.
That's a champ move.
I was gonna say, leave it to him to actually deal with this. Like every time he can't get it right, just every time.
He's a disaster crossing the border. He's an absolute disaster crossing the border for various reasons. It's awesome. It's awesome.
All right, next, sticky stuff. Washington Nationals pitcher Max Scherzer was ready to strip down to nothing but vulnerability. I love how you wrote that piece. When umpires checked him for a substance check, essentially, for the third time that game, this time in the middle of an inning. No audio in this one, but you can actually see him mouthing, I got nothing. Nothing but sweat.
Yeah, I look, it's absolutely a childish reaction, but I understand the frustration of a rule changing mid-season, and then the application of that rule is insane. Look, okay, John, give me your thoughts, and then I'll tell you who needs to be checked 3 times a game.
So I'm more curious. Like, is this just like gamesmanship on the part of Girardi, or is he trying to get Scherzer off his game, or is he legitimately concerned that after 3 checks he might still have whatever it's called on him?
There's video footage of him touching his cap and like licking stuff between pitches, essentially. So he thought, well, maybe he changed his cap in between innings and went back on the field with something else, so we wanted to check him. But honestly, it's just fucking bullshit, honestly. Like, he's just fucking with him at that point.
It's Girardi trying to throw him off his rhythm, is what it seems to me. Like, they need to implement.
Girardi got pitched from that game, by the way, because at the end of that inning, as he's walking off the field, Scherzer, he stares down Girardi. And one of the Nationals coach who used to play with Girardi basically yelled across the benches in the field, basically saying it's fucking bullshit, you're bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And Girardi gets on the field and starts running at him, basically like, yeah, you want to start something? K Long. His name was Kevin Long or whatever. Like, yeah, you start something, K Long. And the umpire threw Girardi out of the game for it, essentially. So
I think they should like implement like a specific challenge rule, like you only allowed to challenge and look for it once per game. The umps can do it any time, but the coaches can only ask to have a player checked once or whatever it is. They need to have a rule in place. But yet, when I saw this,
Grammarly helps make your writing clear.
Grammarly, we don't pay for your ads. Go away.
When I saw this, I thought, you know who they? What's this, Eagle? What are you putting on screen here?
This is the extended clip, essentially.
So this is the aftermath. Okay.
Yeah, so they're discussing it and everything, and then there's a bunch of stare down and stuff that happens. It's interesting to say the least. So here's when, like, at the end of the inning, stares him down.
I would have loved if you did that face, the guy that the LA Dodgers pitcher made.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Joe Kelly.
That's right. I love baseball fights.
Yeah, I'll do it. You can't march over to the other bench. It's like rule 1 of being a manager. So I think the guy who needs to be checked every pitch. There's only one guy who needs to be checked every pitch. And this is just me shoehorning this into the show because there's no time to put it anywhere else. Jacob deGrom should be checked every pitch. I'm gonna give you some stats on what Jacob deGrom's been doing this season. Obviously, we all know he's got the .50 ERA, and it's almost July. He also he has 6 RBIs as a hitter. Do you know how many RBIs, John, he has allowed?
Isn't it like 3 or 4?
4.
4.
You know, his RHA, his his EHA earned hits average. His earned hits per 9 innings.
No idea.
3.48. Pitchers in the National League are hitting 112. Do you know what the opposing batting average is against Jacob deGrom?
Gonna take a guess and say .08.
113. So guys, professional hitters against him are essentially pitchers picking up the bat. It's like he's facing 9 pitchers in the rotation. Yeah, that dude's either the greatest cheater I've ever seen or the best pitcher I've ever seen. I don't think it matters to me. That's just on this world. He's awesome. I don't care. Maybe it's because I'm a Mets fan. I thought Pedro was the best I've ever seen. Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher I've ever seen in my lifetime. Period.
Oh yeah.
I didn't see Sandy Koufax. I know I'm supposed to respect the old guys. I can only speak to what I've seen. I've never seen anything like this.
No, me neither. It's incredible.
Where does her heart beat now? The Las Vegas Golden Knights attempted to rally their team for Game 5, and they did so by trying to unnerve the Canadians and put this picture on the Jumbotron. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I was happy when Celine Dion left to go to Vegas because we don't have to deal with her anymore.
Hey, I'm a Celine stan. I love Celine. I will, if Titanic is on or someone's streaming it, I'll only watch if it's coming on near the part where her heart will go on. I'm a proud Quebecois. I love Celine Dion. I hate that they use it against her. That they use it against the Canadians. I will say it's a picture from one of, I believe, her live albums. And I hope at least that this was done without her consent.
Without her consent?
Guaranteed.
Yeah. I'm hoping they just put up a picture as a joke, and she stands up for the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh yeah, I was kind of waiting for like the response from her to see what she would say, because I don't think she like her ties to Quebec are way too strong. She's a Montreal Habs fan through and through. Get out of here, Vegas. Get out of here.
Seriously. First of all, you're lucky enough to have a piece of our fair province in the shape of Celine Dion in your city, your second-rate city, second-rate compared to Montreal. I don't even believe that. I love Vegas. But anyway, the point is, you're lucky to have Celine in your city. And after seeing that, I don't know if my heart can go on.
You and your terrible puns. All right. The Morey job. So we talked a little bit earlier about the thoughts from Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid on Ben Simmons and the whole situation in the 76ers. The Philadelphia media decided to ask some similar questions to GM Daryl Morey, including, how every team has that one reporter you don't want to take questions from because they're just idiotic questions. Example, Tony Marinaro here in Montreal, and there's a bunch of them elsewhere. Well, the 76ers have the same type of situation. So let's listen to these question and answer back and forth.
Howard Eskin. Daryl, I want to go back kind of towards the beginning when Keith talked about the future of Ben Simmons with this team. And I think it was a clear indication, like asking, will he be here? So I'm asking the question, can you tell us that Ben Simmons will be a 76er next season?
I love your questions, Howard. I would say, look.
I love them too, Karl.
We have a very strong group we believe in. There's none of us can predict the future of what's going to happen in any place. We love what Ben brings. We love what Joel brings. We love what Tobias brings. In terms of what's next, we're going to do what's best for the 76ers to give us the best chance to win the championship with every single player on the roster.
So what you're saying is, if the possibility is there to improve the team, and that means moving Ben Simmons, that you would do it.
I'm not addressing Ben Simmons, but any move that will help our team win the championship or improve our odds, we will look at and do if it makes sense to do that.
So the only thing I'm trying to ask is, will you look at the value of Ben Simmons as well as any other player on this basketball team to improve the 76ers?
So you just defined the job of a general manager, which is to assess everything, assess every player on the roster, figure out what is best to do with them to help us win the championship. So yes, I'm going to operate as the general manager of the 76ers, and I appreciate you defining my job description.
Okay, I appreciate your responses, even though you may think they're difficult.
No, it's okay. Hey, you're a big part of this market, Howard. Love you. Love you.
I love you too. Let's go to Chris Krause.
It's reasonably amicable considering they must hate each other's guts.
Well, Daryl Morey has no patience for media in general. He's a bright guy, and he's one of those guys who's not shy to let you know it. I liked it, to be honest. I find these press conferences, as we saw in my article with Osaka, to be kind of pointless in 2021 anyway. And I find media members have sort of this bizarre, unearned arrogance. Just the types of questions, like he's very clearly trying to fish for an answer and he thinks he can fool Daryl Morey into answering a Ben Simmons question, where he keeps saying, "I'm not talking about Ben Simmons."
I wish not just owners or GMs or anything, but like I would love to see more sports figures just lie during an interview like this, like during a media availability. Just be like, yeah, we're trading Simmons, we're trading Embiid, we're going to see what happens, and we're going to just roll the dice and we're going to ride with it. Because it just feels like I'd rather hear that than just these carte blanche generalized terms that they use where they're saying, well, we can't predict the future.
Do you have any specific press conferences that come to mind, John, that were like just funny responses?
I have one off the top of my head. The Michel Therrien Pittsburgh Penguins one, where he basically just rips on his entire team and describes his defensive squad as trying to be the worst defensive squad in the league, and they're doing very good at it because they have no vision, they have no puck movement, and they're soft, not soft, but soft, like he's never seen a defensive squad soft before, to then rip on people for only playing a certain number of minutes in a game, and that, would they like it if we only paid them a certain amount of their salary, that there's guys in the room that say they care, but that they don't care, and Marc-Andre Fleury at the time was the only player who was trying out on the ice. That was still my favorite one, because he just straight up said it was a pathetic performance and the whole thing, and just one question, that's all it took, and he just laid it all out in front of everyone.
Here, you got one, John?
Well, I was just going to say, like, as a little bit of like a comparison, I've watched a lot of like the Habs press conference, obviously, and Bergevin and Arpin Basu from The Athletic have this little rift, I guess you could call it, and every once in a while, like, Arpin will ask a question that Bergevin doesn't like, and he'll give a sarcastic response. So when the Habs, I think it was when the Habs waived Victor Mete right before the trade deadline, Arpin asked, well, why didn't you trade him for something? And Bergevin's answer was, well, I got offered a first-round pick, and I said no.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. My favorite of all time, I thought of a lot of them. I thought like the Dennis Green one, the Bears who are who we thought they were, and so on. My favorite is still a reporter during the NBA Finals asked Kobe Bryant, where do you think LeBron is going next year? And he said, I don't give a fuck. It's the finals. It made me very happy.
That's a very appropriate response.
Yeah.
And last topic for today, Tort-Tempered, a California high school coach, L.D. Lapierre, has been fired after throwing tortillas at the opposing team, which was mostly comprised of Hispanic players from a Hispanic school.
I wanted to have so much fun with this because of the throwing tortillas, and then I realized, he's doing it because he's a racist. I hope you listen. The guy's a jerk. I'm glad we put his name out there. Weirdly, a lot of the articles hid his name, which I found to be surprising. Like, why are you protecting the dude who did something racially insensitive? But anyway, look, the point is, he did it. Throwing tortillas in a vacuum is funny. Remember J.R. Smith? J.R. Smith threw tortilla soup, and it ended up leading to a NBA championship. So hopefully both schools will improve beyond this point because the tortilla curse has been lifted.
Yeah, that's wild. That's a waste of tortillas, man. You can make some great things with that.
Absolutely. So the three things. There are three things I knew to be obvious as a child. Can you guess what they are, John? Based on today's show.
That's a loaded question, I'm afraid now.
Don't be racist, don't be sexist, don't be homophobic.
They're in that. It's our company motto, by the way, but it's
yes.
It's largely touching on that because they're fundamental beliefs I've had my entire life. But the three things that I knew as a child that I thought these things are ridiculous to be things that are considered to be contentious was firstly, that gay people couldn't be married, right? And that they were in some way inherently worse, or that their love was less valuable than
or it's a threat to somebody else's marriage.
Exactly. I always thought, well, like my parents always said that like they love each other, and they always said that they want me to find someone I love. And so in my case, I'm straight, married my wife, and I want anybody to have the same kind of happiness I have. So as a child, I thought that was ridiculous. So to bring it back, I'm happy, of course, to see Karl Nassib coming forward and being a voice for other people. The second thing, this one relates specifically to Alex Caruso. And in sports, for years and years and years, we've seen, these drugs that are tearing up players on the inside that they were taking for pain and pain management and so on. And as a kid, thinking to myself, well, cigarettes are legal. They kill people. Alcohol is legal. It kills people. Marijuana, illegal because reasons. I legitimately didn't understand it from about the time I was 11 years old. And we've seen that to be the case. We've seen it to be tolerated and now legalized in Canada, starting to be legalized across the U.S. Do you know what the third thing is, John?
Don't get undressed on the baseball mound.
No, actually, I salute anybody who is willing to get undressed in public. We're a sex-positive show. The thing is, I never understood how you can expect athletes to play for school for free, and to treat them scholarship. The person on scholarship can make money. So someone on a music scholarship, for example, can play in a band and make money on the side, and that's fine. They can write an incredible song and get picked up by a record label, but a player cannot sell, athlete's foot cream or Viagra or whatever it is at all. I always thought that to be kind of a silly rule, that coaches can make money, that the universities and schools can make money, and that players were banned from making money. And in one show, we got to talk about all three items. We got to talk about Karl Nassib coming out. We got to talk about the ridiculousness of being able to travel with a bottle of booze, but not a grinder with marijuana residue. And finally, we got to talk about the NCAA finally compensating its athletes. So, different kind of show today. Lots of actual news to cover. That was kind of interesting. Thank you, John, for joining me and dealing with my neuroses on these topics. Eagle, thank you for everything you've done. I appreciate you adding the Max Scherzer pitch for the Nationals, because I forgot to put that in rapid fire. Very professional of you. And I wanted to remind people to follow us, to like what we do, to subscribe, to register. Listen, John's out west. How much is a case of beer in Calgary, John?
Oh, it's mine. It's insane. It's $30 for a 12-pack.
$30 for 12 beers. John needs money, and the only way we get money...
I got a drink.
John needs to drink, and the only way to keep his liver lubricated is, of course, to subscribe to what we do, to watch it, to download it, and to rate and review if you can. We definitely do appreciate it, because that way we can convince our sponsors to give John his beer money. He'll thank you forever. But for now, I thank you all for letting me be myself.
You've been listening to Hot Sauce Sports.